I'm Wayne Donaldson, the Chairman of the Board of Finance. We're here to present the budget and to take comments. First of all, I need to apologize if you have a copy of this sheet that has all zeros on it. For some reason, when we took moved it over for printing, we must have lost some formulas. I will get that adjusted and will be posted on the website probably by the end of the day tomorrow. If anyone wants to take a look at that, it will be available on the town website. Okay. Unfortunately, this year we had a number of occurrences that happened to all come down in the same year. Besides large budget increases, we did have some drops in revenue on different areas. So I'll explain those as we go through this. We will take questions and comments once I'm completed here. And I will refer any individual questions on either the town budget to Tom Sparkman or the Board of Ed budget. Ian, who's the chairman of the Finance Committee of the Board of Ed. Okay. So the total net budget for the 25-26 year is $1,450,057,465 over the current 2024-25 fiscal budget, which is an increase of 9.2%. On the expense side, the Board of Education increased by $1,409,492, and they did send me a slight adjustment to that, which is not reflected in these numbers, downward slightly, that we will adjust before we make a final determination. And that is a 12.9% increase. The budget for the special education expenses in the past were deducted out of the education budget, but they have included in this year's calculation with the state special education reimbursement being added in as a revenue item to the town. This results in an actual increase to the Board of Education budget of $990,341, or 9.1% over the last year. The primary drivers for the increase in the Board of Education budget are large increases in the new bus contract, salary increases due to the new contract, which was a 12.2% increase over a total of 3 years, and significant increases in special education costs and health insurance. On the town budget side, the increase by $107,936, or 2.8% increase. During the year, self-funded programs were taken out of the recreation budget and placed in their own fund. This reduced the recreation budget by $32,000 from the 2024 to 25 fiscal year. When added back, the total increase in the town request is $139,936, or a 3.7% increase. The most significant increase in the town side of the budget is the requested increase in the non-allocated expenses, or $83,928, with the majority increases of $20,000 for consulting fees, $14,000 for insurance and bonding, $19,000 for the town engineer, town council of $13,000, and health insurance, and smaller decreases that are shown in the town budget summary. Major drivers for the Board of Education increase are salaries, an increase of $257,985, or 6.4%. Regular education expenses increased by $233,765, an 11.63% increase. Special education had an increase of $754,603, a 25.18% increase. And again, part of this increase was because of the fact that the special education reimbursement from the town had been netted out of the previous budgets. And that in last year's budget was $418,000. Where was I? Technology increased by $56,286, a 40.86% increase. And transportation increased by $37,847, a 6.55% increase. There were other changes, both increases and decreases, further explained in the Board of Education budget. Bonding and long-term debt. As planned, the bond payments, after a sharp increase last year with the addition of bonding for the firehouse, we saw a reduction this year of $59,961. As we continue to make principal payments, that amount will continue to go down as the interest payments decrease. Revenue. With the increase in the mill rate last year, we moved into state budget maximum, which is basically any town that has a mill rate over 25. We are now governed by a regulation from the state that limits our increase to either 2.5% or the current rate of inflation, which for this year was 3.1%. Okay. These amounts are exceeded, because there's no reason we can't exceed them. We will lose 50 cents for every dollar allocated to the town for the municipal stabilization grant. And this year that would amount to a loss of $69,158. For the first time in many years, the town grand list has decreased. The primary driving factor in this was a $5,818,109 drop in the assessment for motor vehicles. That was for a change the state made in how motor vehicles are now assessed. We did have a $760,833 increase in the personal property. No, that was the real estate, and the personal property increased $430,070. This resulted in a net decrease in the grand list of $4,627,156. The Board of Finance has elected at this point to add $400,000 to the revenue section coming out of the reserve account to help lower the total mill rate. Unfortunately, this is short-term allocation, has limited availability going forward. The Board of Finance had projected using $200,000 of the reserve account for the first 5 years to reduce the impact of the firehouse bond. We've doubled that for this year, but again, that's a limited fund. Sooner or later it's just going to run out. The more quicker we use it, the faster it will run out. And it's not good policy to fund your regular operating expenses from a one-time account. Based on the latest funding projection from the state, there is a $79,335 reduction in the state education course sharing grant. The state representatives said they're pushing for a hold harmless, which would maintain us at the current level and not take that $79,000 away. But as of now, the latest paperwork we have shows that going away. Based on the existing mill rate of 25.43, the requested budget is underfunded in the amount of $1,428,163, which equals 3.05 mils, or a new mill rate of 28.48, a tax increase of 12%. The Board of Finance is looking to use the $400 from the reserve account to reduce that, and then have a combination of budget cuts and mill rate increases, somewhere in between to make up the difference. Future considerations. The number of special education students at the Board of Ed is very fluent. One student coming in could dramatically affect that portion of the budget. Could be, $70,000 to $100,000 increase in the cost for that student alone. By the same token, if a student leaves the district that is a high-cost student, they could have a savings on that amount. So it's one of those that Last year, they ended up with 2 or 3 students that came in that drove their special ed numbers through the roof. Another future consideration is state funding. As you know, state has been making every issue to cut back on what they give to towns. Unfortunately, because we do have such a low rate, a tax mill rate compared to the cities, we have a tendency to become a target, so local rural towns. You know, one thing that the state does not take into consideration is those towns are paying for fire departments, they're paying for wastewater removal, they're paying for trash pickup. Our residents pay for that on their own. They donate to the volunteer fire department. We do give them a stipend through the budget, but a lot of their funding comes through donations and stuff from the residents. And those aren't the same situations that happen in the larger towns. We have to maintain our septic systems, we have to have them pumped. And that's all costs that, you know, the inner city residents don't see in most cases. We also are not currently sure what the future holds for federal funding. A lot of the education expenses are paid out of title grants. There's a varying number of title grants. So depending on whether those truly get passed through to the states or not, and then how the state elects to distribute them, could have an impact on either the services the school can offer or the amount the town has to fund to make that numbers up. The last payment for the fire truck is due in the next year's budget, not the one we're talking about now, but in the 2026-27 budget, which will reduce the funding that we're paying for that to help offset budget cuts or lower the amount we have to take out of the reserve fund. Well, with the renewed concerns of inflation and the impact of any tariffs on costs, future impacts of these items will have a direct impact on future budgets. Effect on the mill rate. Each mill increase above the existing will result in a tax increase of $100 per year for every 100,000 of assessed property value, or 8.33 per month. Based on the Zillow average price for homes in Ledger, it went up slightly to $351,792, or about a 5.7% increase. It was around $340,000 last year. Based on this tax increase would be tax in the increase for that average home would be $351.79 a year, or 29.32 cents per month. I have provided you a list of the homes, and again, I have to, this was, actually, I don't know, we've got 2 here. One is here, does have the home values. And again, as I did last year, I took a random sampling. I used the same homes I did last year. And if you look across the top, it says the first column in green is 28.49 mill rate with no use of the reserve fund and no cuts to the budget would result in that mill rate. If we took no cuts to the budget, but had a $400,000 option from the reserve fund, total increase, I'm just taking the first one as an example, would go from $850, excuse me, my glasses aren't as good as they used to be, would go from $650 a year to $467 a year. With a 5% decrease in their requested budgets and a $400,000 from the reserve fund, would drop that to $442. And with a 10% cut, would drop it to $411. And with a 15% cut, would drop to $383. So you would see a reduction from the original amount of $54 per month down to $32 per month. And these are just examples. It doesn't, you know, we may come up with something in between, Or we may have to go a larger amount. Okay. The last is, if you look at this sheet, is the tax rate based on the assessed value. So basically, you have four values across the top of the sheet. 100, 200, 300, 400, so you can rough estimate of what your assessed value on your home is. And that will give you the exact, I'll take the first column, for 100,000, the first number under there is the current mill rate and what your taxes would be. And then if we had to implement the full mill rate increase, your taxes would go up from 25,43 to 2,849. If we did a mill rate increase of 27.63, you would see it 2,763. Excuse me. At 27.513, which would be a 10%, a 5% cut would be 2,751. 10% cut would be 2,737, and added 15 would be 2,724. Excuse me. So that will give you an idea if you multiply across times your assessed value. Okay, I'll take questions or comments. Yes. Please say your name and address.
Brady Larkin, 202 Preston Allen Road.
Yep.
So the amount for special education excess cost is not being netted in the budget this year, you said?
That is correct.
So where would that money go if it's not being delegated towards the school budget? Because the excess
It
cost
shows
is
up on the
different.
revenue side and the general revenue amount that's on.
And it's
there.
already in there?
Yes. Yes. So if you look up at the top, in the revenue section, it'll say the cost sharing grant, and then you'll see a new line that says $450,000 for special education funding. Not there.
Where is it?
In the spreadsheet,
This is pretty big time.
in this spreadsheet. Yes. Yeah, it'll be up on in the second section. Excess special education costs will be the second item down under education. As you can see, it did not show up in past years, and it's showing up in this year. And that revenue goes down to the bottom of the sheet and net out between the increase. Any other questions? Yes.
Hi, Wayne.
How you doing?
Leo McDonald, 332 South Burnham Highway.
Mhm.
I have 3 questions and a comment.
Okay.
Line item 5114, bookkeeper's wages, it appears like it's going up 12%.
Yes. Yeah, please.
That increase, Leo, reflects something that the Board of Selectmen decided to do. To compensate the bookkeeper for additional duties that she is now doing. Well, she's been doing it for a while, but she was never compensated for it. When she was originally hired, that was a part-time position, and she had very limited duties. She was just doing strictly accounts payable. She is now doing tracking of all of the urban action grants for all of our projects, LoSiP grants for all of our projects, all of the ARPA money for all of that comes in, the opioid funds that comes in, and how that is expended. She was responsible for tracking all the expenditures for the fire department And for the Board of Education, every payment affecting the cash in the general fund or miscellaneous grants, every single check and all payroll must be entered at the town level into QuickBooks. Each check is entered individually, not as a total dollar amount. This ensures that the treasurer can reconcile the accounts at the end of the month. So the Board of Selectmen made a decision to acknowledge and compensate her for those additional duties.
How many hours per week?
She works 30 hours a week.
Did she work 30 hours per week before?
Yes.
So she's getting that done in the same time frame?
She's doing additional duties.
Yeah, during the same time frame?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't understand that.
What don't you understand?
If she was hired at 30 hours a week.
She was hired originally, it was a part-time position.
Is that 30 hours a week?
No, it was 15.
Oh, that explains it.
That's still on the books for the job description as a part-time position with significantly less duties
Should that
and
be changed?
responsibilities. It will be during the contract negotiations. Got more for me?
I don't know.
Well, you said you had 3. I just wanted to make sure that.
Yeah. Town hall computer, is that you?
Yes,
Okay.
big changes.
Yeah, we doubled it. What's
Yeah.
the story on that?
Big changes. Changes in the hosting, changes in the server, all changes that have to be made to accommodate the requirements of the state.
You changed the company that you're using to supply that.
No. No. No, these are changes that we have to make to accommodate the state requirements and all of the hosting requirements that we have to do for them. Do you know what hosting is?
No.
Okay.
No,
No. We have servers, and we have to, the servers host the computers. It's not like little laptops anymore. We actually have a server room that has servers in it, and we're actually, that's actually increasing with a state mandated system that has to go in that's additional to what we have. So the requirements of our computer services are going to be significantly more. And we actually have to change our domain. We're not going to be a .com anymore. We're going to be a .org, .gov. We're going to be a .gov.
Does the state pay for that mandated?
No.
Okay, the last one is United Community Family Services.
Yes,
That's you?
yes.
And why did that go up 3,500?
Well, actually, give me the
52777.
okay. I'd be glad to talk to you about that. United Community and Family Services. They actually asked for $40,000.
What they did.
Yes, they did. They asked for $40,000. We gave them, we increased from $25,000 to $28,500 because we felt that it was worthwhile, considering that 99 dental visits to 51 Lisbon residents were provided by them at a cost of $30,740. 652 primary medical care visits to 245 Lisbon residents at a cost of $147,634. 48 women health visits to 28 Lisbon residents at a cost of $8,931. 1,557 behavioral health visits to 66 Lisbon residents at a cost of $190,400, and 141 Ross Daycare Center visits to 3 residents at a cost of $16,905. We figured that $28,500 is a bargain.
What's their primary source of income?
They're us and grants, and the federal government, and we'll see how that turns out for them.
Okay. And last is a comment. I'm on 2
Thank you,
boards in
Tom.
town. One board requested a 0 increase, and the other board requested $1 increase. it seems to me that the other boards and officers and committees and whatever could do something along that line rather than this $107,000 increase in our budget. My thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Yes?
Frank Farmer, 303 Roscoe Road.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just looking at your sheet here with all zeros, which is disappointing. We don't get to see what the totals are, but
Yeah, well, I told you that I apologize for that, it would be posted, but then when I looked, there is another sheet that has the information on it.
my question is, you show 5, 10, 15%.
Yeah.
Why not more? Why not 20, 25%? Why are we not looking a little deeper? Everybody's getting affected by all this, so why are we?
We looked up to 40%, but for the efficiencies of making something that you could read, I limited this to just a 15.
Okay, so what's that 40% then? What does it bring it down to?
Brings it down to, second. Revenue down. It's just a slight increase in the mill rate, like a 0.5%, half a
So
mill.
it brings it to what? 25 and
26, 25.93.
Okay, so is that not being realistic then, to look deeper than trying to put 3 points on everybody?
Well, we're looking at all the things.
Okay.
You know, we haven't settled on any number, okay?
Okay.
But if you look, there isn't a huge drop. When you look at your monthly for a $100,000 house, once you get past and you start with the funding in, the 400,000, you're talking 1833 a month, 5% by 1736. So you're talking 97 cents a month. 10% is 1613, so you're talking $2. So, you know, the difference isn't huge, but we understand that it is, you know, it is an impact on the residents. So we're looking at everything. Yeah. Yeah. We're looking at everything. Yeah, we've looked up to 40%, which we think was probably the absolute maximum. And that's going to be significant cuts in services to Board of Ed and at the town.
Okay, so right now, the services from town, plowing the roads, coal patching,
Yes.
what other service am I missing?
The recycling pickup, the,
That's 2.
yeah, recycling pickup.
I'm just struggling for that, I
Yeah.
gotta believe there's gonna be more cuts.
Yeah,
We certainly, if everybody's in agreement here, we could certainly cut the selectmen's budget by a lot. We could cut it by $30,000 if you all agree that you don't want spring cleanup.
I think you need to find where you cut it, 'cause
I can
3
cut-
points is a lot.
If you're suggesting that we cut spring cleanup, make
I'm
that
suggesting
suggestion.
you look not just at spring cleanup, but other departments, not just that one item.
Well, that's the big one. If you wanna go 40%, that would be an obvious one.
you know, you have the cost of your building inspector, you have the cost of the treasurer, you have the cost of the town clerk's office. And the Board of Finance has 30-something thousand for the audit that we're required to do every year. So there is a lot of small things. Rec department has to maintain the fields, they have to seed them, prep the fields. So there's a lot more than just plowing the roads and stuff, but a lot of it is smaller items.
Okay, I think we need to certainly
Yeah.
add some of the small items to add them up, because 3 points
You do.
is a lot to ask.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. Yes,
Hi, Christina Milovich, 40 Bartlett Road.
yep.
In addition to spring cleanup, is there any other larger items that could be considered? I mean, obviously, when we're talking about, these smaller things, it's there anything else large that we could consider?
There's not really, unless you're talking the health insurance, those fixed, I don't want to say fixed costs, but those, partial labor costs. The labor, yes.
We could do away with the road repair, so we won't fix potholes. We
Doesn't have to be
I don't think
extreme
anybody
stuff like
wants
that.
Well, you're asking for big cuts. Those are the only areas that we have money that's really big, that's not, what's that? I don't know what that is.
This is your
That's the Board of Ed.
Education.
Yes.
Okay, I can't think of the Board of Education, sorry.
Yeah, that's a separate budget item. That, all we can do, just so everybody understands, the only thing we can do on the Board of Ed is give them a dollar amount. We can't say you need to cut this, you need to lay off teachers, you need to stop your bus transportation. By law, the only thing we can give them is a dollar amount. Okay? It is up to them to decide how they use those dollars. That answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Leo McDonald,
Yep.
332 South Vernon. Has this, the school committee looked into combining our superintendent with, like the Sprague superintendent? We only have, 200 odd plus or minus students in the school? That seems a lot to have assistant principal, a principal, and a superintendent.
Can we answer that?
That has been talked about, but I will allow the Board of Ed to answer that for you.
So we have over 400 kids in LCS, and we tuition out 160 high school kids.
Oh, you include the high school?
Yeah, we have a .4 superintendent who probably puts in more hours than any other employee in this school, just doing her job here. I can't imagine sharing her with another town. So, I hope that
The
is.
400 includes the students that are in a high school?
No, sir, no, sir. We want to clarify that for you. 1 minute.
There's 423 kids in this school, and there's 162 that we tuition out to high schools.
Over that,
Over that.
400 plus 162?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Shelley Appleton, 138 Kimball Road.
Mhm.
I just wanted to comment, I'm looking at the Board of Education budget through 3 different lenses. I am a taxpayer in this town, I am a parent in this town, I'm also a teacher in this town, and I fully support the budget.
Okay, thank you. Yes,
Does the
Leo?
incinerator still pay us a tax?
Yes, they do. That was, the contract on that expired last year. We were able to renegotiate a new agreement, which was significantly less than what we had been getting. We had been getting $1 million a year. The new contract was for 417, I believe. It's in here. It's down in the expense, or in the revenue column. Yeah, it's 417,500, plus we get a tipping fee for every ton of material that crosses their scale. We have that estimated at 125,000.
Considering the plant's almost 30 years old, it's not bad.
Yes.
One other observation,
Mhm.
the rec committee dropped from 78 to 45, attaboy to the rec committee.
Well, before you say that.
Okay, take it back.
I made a note in that in my comments that we put their trips into a self-funded account. So before, we used to lay out the money, and then in the revenue section of our budget, we had what was expected to come back. That's in a separate fund now, so the revenue came out of the budget along with the expenses. Okay? So they're in a separate account now, so as they collect the money from the people for the ski trip, goes into account, then pays for the lift tickets or the bus or whatever.
So it ends up a wash.
Yes. It's always been a wash, but we always funded the money up front, and then it came back into the general fund through the revenue collected. But
This
now
is
it's,
a lot better.
yeah, now it's just, so. Yeah, so it wasn't really a reduction, but that 32,000 got absorbed into the rest of the town budget.
Thank you.
Yeah. Other comments, questions? Yes.
Heath, 164 Russell Road. Your unallocated expenditures, what does that include? Like unforeseen repairs?
That includes the health insurance, that includes town attorney costs, that includes the donations like this to the health department that was discussed a while ago. Also some smaller donations of 2,300, you know, to the Keller Library in Griswold that services our residents. So there's a bunch of smaller items like that, but the primary ones are the health insurance, town council, those types of things that aren't dedicated to just one line item. Any other questions? You ready?
Right over there.
Yes.
Hi, Rachel Edison, Police Sergeant Snipe. I started here as a teacher and I moved to this town because I wanted my children to go to this town. And I see it from both sides. And the Board of Education budget, although it does have an increase, is what we need. And we know that inflation's hitting everything, it's also hitting schools. And in order to work the way we're working now, we need that budget. And I
Thank
want
you.
that for my children and everybody else's children.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Steve McLaren, 46 Regina Avenue. I'm just curious, on the school board budget right here, do you have a better breakdown rather than just listing what the individual item is? For example, say under technology, you're talking about upgrading to the classroom or addition of books, teachers, something. I mean, it's a better breakdown than just saying technology.
Okay, I'll ask the board ed to answer that for you.
So technology for this school includes Chromebooks for the students. We initially were gonna purchase 100, that's what our IT department wanted us to purchase, 100 per year for 4 years, because the ones we have now are 4+ years old. We cut that in half, we cut it to 50. Other technologies, our servers, switches, Wi-Fi,
Access point,
the access point for
software.
the TV, the stuff out in the foyer there. Access point, the fobs, the key fobs that all the teachers have to enter the school in and out as part of our security. So that's what technology is.
Yeah, is there a better list like?
There is a breakdown.
Yeah, breakdown. Is
Yeah.
that online too? Because I didn't see it.
We can probably put something online.
We can do it.
We can do
We
it.
can have it by tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
No problem.
This is sort of like a summary, but no
Yeah.
detail.
Yeah.
We'll put it on the school webpage.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Yes.
I just wanted to echo off of Ms. Hibberson. I also moved to Lisbon because of the school system. I have one child who goes to school here, is in first grade, and another one that will be entering next year. I think when we think about where we're going to cut and save, it shouldn't be with the children in this town. People move to this town because it's such a wonderful town with so many wonderful people, and the school system has just been incredible. It's been very supportive of my son, who has had some behavior issues, and this is where we need to be spending money and putting money, so I hope, if there is ways to offset these increased costs, yes, let's look at them. But let's also make sure that we're doing the right thing as a town and supporting the community and the future of the community. And also thinking about things in the long run, right? We can't just think about what is, gonna cost us the least amount of money now and then get into a ton of debt. I know I would like to save it for the long term, so it costs what it costs. And, just like you said, the inflation is everywhere, school systems, every town, or there's a lot of towns in Connecticut that are seeing and experiencing the
Thank you. Do you have another question, sir?
Yeah, just as I look at this, at the Board Ed, it went up $1 million. I gotta believe there's gotta be some cuts there. I don't understand how $1 million increase can happen, because you go from a 3 mil rate or a 2 mil rate to a 1 mil rate, that's a lot. How much is the budget reserve? Like, how much you budget for reserve?
The total is 4.2 million, but some of that is restricted.
Restricted in what respect?
Because of how it was set up, like some of that is used for, is in the reserve for salt shed. We have a reserve in there for vehicles, so you don't have to go out and hit the tax base, would build up a little bit each year in there, those types of things.
So we have $4 million for salt and trucks, is that what it's?
No, I said the reserve was that.
But you just said
So
reserve
there
for salt
are
and
parts
trucks.
of it are reserved, I don't have those particular dollar amounts, but there are parts of it that are reserved for the purchase of vehicles and the salt shed and those types of things.
What would be a minimum reserve that you should have?
We are required to hold 17 to 18% of the budget, so you're talking like close to 2 million.
So we're double that.
Yes.
There's no way you can use some of that offset? from
We
this, or
are.
we have to go to 3
We
or
are using
2?
400, we are using 400,000.
I gotta believe there's a place to go to be cut, especially with $1 million increase.
But the problem with using that is eventually it catches up. And you continue to use that for your operating costs, at some point, it's no longer there, and the taxpayers have to eat that difference. So we're trying to
I think
be,
it's more
yeah,
cuts that should be
yeah,
happening.
we're trying to be reasonable and, you know, use it wisely. So what we're trying to do is get through until the bonding gets down to a more reasonable level, which is about 4 years out, 5 years out. So it'll be down this 900, 800,000 instead of the 1.3 million it was last year. Okay, other questions? Yes.
Natalie Rutherford, 155 Ross Hill Road.
Mhm.
I also am a taxpayer, I'm a teacher. My 3 daughters went through this school. I think the school is amazing. I think our Board of Ed has done an amazing job. And our teachers work so much, and I think it's important to, really consider the school, because that's our future. And I don't like, I'm a single person, and I don't like having my taxes go up, but, I don't think it's the right thing to cut. Children are not the way we should cut, the school budget. I do have a question about the town cleanup, actually, because I think that's really nice, that I can just go out and put my stuff out. It's very convenient, it's great. Is there any way we can cut that so it's like every 3 years? I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't have a refrigerator to put out there every year. And I actually, no, I'm having spring, Easter at my house, and I had a bunch of stuff I had a bunch of stuff to get rid of, and I paid to have somebody come and clean it up, because I don't wanna wait till June or July or whatever it is.
Put it up much earlier than that.
Yes. But my point is that something that can be cut before the kids? I know that's like a very big convenience. I like it, but I think that should be considered cut before the school. I don't agree that we should cut the pothole. I mean, we don't want potholes in our roads, but we really, I don't think we need to put our refrigerators out there every single year.
I'm sure that's something we can look at.
I would love to, but we have households that put 2 or 3 refrigerators out every year.
Right,
I don't
you know,
know where they get them, but they put 2 or 3 refrigerators out every year. And there's already stuff out.
Yes.
And you drive around town, there's already stuff out.
Okay. Yes.
Dave Nowakowski, 15 Kenyon Road, parent of 4 students in or through the Griswold Lisbon system, and also a member of the Board of Ed. When I'm finished, I would ask for Ian to explain a little bit more with clarity on some of the special education costs, because I think there's a little confusion about talking about $1 million increase.
Sure.
When the vast percentage of that is driven through some of the things you mentioned, but maybe people didn't hear them earlier. When you budget for 21 special ed students and the number becomes 31, that's a 50% increase. You cannot budget for that, and you can't cut that. That's not a cuttable item. The reimbursement fund, which again, it's the proper way to allocate it, but it shows as a larger increase in this regard, so it's viewed as an increase when the net is similar. So if you remove those two items, the increase falls in line with what most of the tuition increases. You know, when we hear the cost to send to NFA and Griswold increased by 11 or 12%, that's not 11 or 12% tuition cost. That's a 3 to 3.5% tuition change, but because of the number of students having increased, part of which is the result of the tech school system changing their format for how they accept students. Lisbon students used to have a higher success rate of being accepted into the tech school system. Now that it's changed to a lottery, that number is reduced, and the number of students from Lisbon who do not have the option to go to a tech school, which for those of you who don't know, there is no tuition cost to your town if the students go to one of the tech schools. But when you reduce that number, and those students are then put back into the pool of NFA and Griswold, your tuition costs have to increase based on numbers. And again, not based on percent increase. My final statement is that if you look at the last 10 years, the average annual budget increase for the Board of Ed has been under 1.4%. That's a very low number over a 10-year period. And I think the board and the Board of Finance has done a pretty good job of trying to keep that number as low as possible. There are other towns, there are other businesses, there are other budgets that build in a little bit of a buffer so that it seems like it's a moderate increase every year, so it's never huge like it is this year. And I've had people, and I know you guys understand the math, and I know the board understands the math, but I've had people in town tell me, geez, I wish it had just gone up 2.5% the last 10 years, and we wouldn't have had this big hit then. That's a $10 million difference that you wanted to see, because you don't want to see a big jump in 1 year. I know the math may sound complicated, but I know you can back me up on this, that one big increase when needed is a far lesser impact than a 2.4% average over 10 years instead of a 1.4, which has been the average over 10 years. So that's all I have to say, but I would request maybe a little additional clarification, Ian, if you could, on those costs, particularly as they relate to special ed.
Before Ian takes over, he is absolutely correct, okay? I ran the numbers on the last 7 years' mill rates, and the average increase is 1.1% over the last 7 years. Go ahead, Ian.
So, like Dave was saying, this year we were asked by the Board of Finance not to net our special ed costs. So in the past, for the past 15 years, we've always figured out what the excess cost was going to be. An excess cost is a threshold that the state sets, that if we have high need students, the total cost of their tuition, services, and transportation is added together, and if it exceeds $85,000, which is what the threshold is, the state reimburses the town for that money. So say we had 10 kids, and each one of them had an excess cost of $50,000. That would be a $500,000 excess cost grant that the state would give back to the town. So in previous years, we subtracted that number, that excess cost, from our budget. So if we had $1 million increase, it would only show as a $500,000 increase. This year, the Board of Finance asked us not to do that. So the 100% of the cost of special ed is in our budget. So that $1 million that you see there includes $450,534 of excess costs. All right. Now the town is going to get the revenue from the state in the form of a grant, and it'll go in their revenue account and not the school board's. So everybody understand that?
Yes.
All right. The other thing I wanted to say was that we have a lot of students, good number of students, that don't meet that threshold, all right? So, like the average tuition right now for NFA and Griswold is somewhere between 15 and 17,000 for a regular ed child, all right? If you have a special needs child or somebody who just might need help with speech or physical therapy or occupational therapy or, you know, ADHD or any kind of disability that requires extra services, they go into special programs at NFA or Griswold, which run between $25,000 and $29,000 a year, all right? And then there's other students who have special needs that need special programs, but they also require special transportation, and they might even require other services. And if they don't reach that threshold of $85,000, we still pay for that child, the whole 100% of it, right? So if we budget, this budget, say, for 31 high school kids tuitioned out, right? We know what programs they're gonna go into, we know what their costs are gonna be. If September of next year, a new family moves in town and they have 2 children that have special needs, we absorb that cost, right? And unfortunately, by absorbing that cost and not going back to the town and saying, hey, we have an extra $100,000 worth of cost, we tend to take it from other places within our budget, right? So, and it usually ends up being taken away from regular education, unfortunately, but that's what we do. I will say I'm a taxpayer in this town. I've lived here for over 30 years. 2 of my kids went through here. I don't like taxes either. I've been on this board for 15 years. This by far is the hardest budget I've ever worked, and I've worked on every one of them. I will tell you that there is an active movement in this state to shift the cost of education away from rural districts, the funding for rural districts, and shift it to urban areas actively. So if you look at the governor's budget, he wants to phase out the ECS grant by another $500,000 to Lisbon by 2032, right? So we had a legislative breakfast last week with 2 of our state reps. We expressed our concerns. We told them that this whole funding thing is not equitable. It's not fair. I'll put it in perspective for you. In 2015, our ECS grant, which is educational cost sharing, that's the state's contribution to the town of Lisbon and every other community in the state, was $3.94 million. Our budget was just over $9 million for the whole school. Today, the ECS grant is $2.8 million and our budget's 12. All right, so there's been a shift. They look at the town wealth, they look at the per capita income, and they say you can afford to pay more money, being local taxpayers, right? And it's really not fair. And it's going to take people speaking up, right? You know, the majority of the population in the state of Connecticut lives in a few, you know, densely populated areas, and they get the votes. But I think if we speak up, speak to our local representatives, that, you know, we can get some change made. You know, transportation costs are through the roof. We went out to bid twice in the last 5 years for a new bus company, and our last bid, we only got one vendor came back with a quote, and that quote was 7% increase for 5 years. So, you know, we asked the legislatures, can we cap that? You know, can we cap the amount of money that they charge us? Special ed, you know, excess costs, it's a tiered system, right? So Bridgeport gets more of a share of the excess cost than Lisbon does, right? Per kid, right? So New Britain, which is the largest school district in the state funds almost $12,000 per student of their budget. They fund $5,300 of ours. So, you know, it's a progressive thing. It's gonna take people speaking to the legislatures, it's gonna take, administrators talking to legislatures, which she does already. But that's what it's gonna take to fix this. And until then, like I said, I'm a taxpayer, it's gonna cost us more. And it's an unfortunate fact. So, that's it. Anybody got any more questions? Yeah.
This is Keith Kuchar, 164 Russell Road. This is regarding health insurance for both the school and the town. What's the employee ratio to the two of them? How many employees does the school have, and how many employees does the town
How
have?
many do you have, Tom?
We have 14 union employees and 5 elected officials who are part of it. But bear in mind, we piggyback with the school.
We're on all on the same policy.
We're part of their insurance.
Okay, so these
If
two
we
different
do
numbers
it on our own, with the few employees that we have, it would be significantly higher, but we're part of the school.
So we have 19 on the town side.
Yeah.
And how many do you have, Ian?
So we have 135 employees, but not all of them are on our insurance. So we have. So we have 41 total.
Well, so basically what I'm getting at is less than 30% of the schools, compared to the school, 30% of the town. The town's employees make up 30%, almost 27% of the school's entire health insurance budget. So why are 15 employees taking up nearly 30% of the health insurance budget?
You can't go just employee to employee.
Well, I understand that, younger people, older people.
Well,
You have family plans, you have
People
single
that are-
plans, you have two people
Yeah,
plans.
you have family plans. A lot of the Board of Ed people are, maybe taking different plans from the town.
So are we paying for people's entire family plans?
Yes?
Yeah,
Yes.
sure.
Okay.
So we looked at the state partnership plan, which is, so it's the same plan that state employees get. They extended it a few years ago to municipalities. I think that their intention was to spread the cost for the state employees, but that's just my opinion. Anyway, we looked at the state partnership plan. It's a 3-year commitment. You lock in for 3 years. So they can do whatever they want to do to you in that 3 years. And you have a 12-month opt-out. So at the end of the second year, if you hate that plan that you've already paid for 2 years, you can opt out the following year. But this year, their increase was 10%. Anthem was 8.14. So we decided not to go with it.
Tom, did you have a comment?
No. You've got it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Yes.
Trish Maynard, 166 Rockville Road. I just want to go on record that I also support the Board of Ed budget as presented.
Thank you. Ma'am, did you have a question?
I have a comment.
Comment? Yes.
John Lennox, 186 Newick Road. As a resident, parent, and employee, I fully support the Board of Education budget, not only for the quality of education that Lisbon Central School provides in the board acting district, but for the high school choices that are provided. A lot of families move here to this town for the high school choices. We're one of them, and we would like to see that continue going forward.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? No. One more time, any other comments, questions? And just for the record, I do have 2 children that do go to the current school system. Excuse me, grandchildren. So I am well versed in the benefits that they're getting from the smaller school system. So, again, any other comments, questions? All right, hearing, oh, yes.
All right, Lori Giuliani, 150 Charlie Street. I also support this budget because in the past there has been cuts in both of my children's classes that suffered from that. receive special ed services, she's really not getting the education that she deserves in a classroom that day.
Any other kind of, yes, ma'am?
Catherine Anderson, 6 Grove Street. I also work at the school, am a parent and a resident, and I just wanted to mention, piggybacking off of that, we had talked about how, like, other people working in the selectman's office, for example, go above and beyond. And I wanted to mention, every single teacher that works in this building goes above and beyond and works hours more than they get paid for and are compensated for. And they're not asking for a 12% increase, they're asking for an 8.7 or 9% increase. And that doesn't even go towards the teacher's salaries. It goes towards other programs. And I think that, anybody who doesn't want to approve this budget should maybe come sub in our building and see how much rent there is and do it for minimum wage, because that's what we pay subs. And I think that if anything should be increased, it's our school budget. Like, this is, yes, a big increase, but it's still not what we need.
Thank you. Just so the school budget does include increases to the employee salaries. No. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Cliff Marlowe. I live at 200 North Burnham Highway, and I'm a grandparent of kids in the school, and I support the budget as presented for the school budget.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? One more time, yes, ma'am.
Eleanor Grant, 55 Blueberry Lane. I am a resident of this town. I'm a senior citizen, probably the oldest one here. And when you have a household, you have to make cuts here and there. I am not for the school budget, as was indicated here. I think things could be cut more than a garbage pickup, more than $30,000. What's that compared to over $1 million?
Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
So I just have one comment.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, I understand what you're saying, and I can tell you, I certainly empathize with that. My taxes went up $1,000 last year, and they're gonna go up again. We started in January with this budget, it was an 18% increase. We cut $740,000 out of the educational budget to get it to 8.46. So there isn't really anything left on the bone to cut, to be honest with you.
Any other comments, questions? Sally, did you want to say
Well,
anything?
no, it's actually what
Okay.
Ian said, $744,842 were cut from the budget. So I'm a little concerned about the cuts. I do worry a little bit. Staffing is everything. You give me a good teacher, I'm a superintendent, I'm sorry now, I'm a superintendent of schools. Okay. You give me a good teacher or a good support staff member, and we can do anything, pretty much, but I am a little worried. $744,842, as Ian Rogers said. And he did a great job, along with the finance committee and the entire board and my administrative team. The teachers also had input. We had to cut some of the requests. We're gonna face them later and tell them what we cut exactly. I have to say this, I feel about taxes. I don't live here, but I pay taxes where I live. And I always go on record that education's everything. And I always go on record because I'm a superintendent of schools. But the kids need to be educated. And that's the job of generations. And I appreciate everything that everyone has said in the room. I hope we can agree to disagree. That's always been my philosophy, even with my staff.
Thank you. Again, and yes.
Brandy Larkin.
You did a good job.
I'm a parent, and I sit on the Board of Ed, and I sit on the subcommittee for the finance. And so, I just want to remind everybody in this room that showing up at this meeting is one way to be able to voice your opinion. But these subcommittee meetings are posted, and they are available for you to come and sit at and to hear what is being discussed. And so, this support, showing up one time a year and having the concerns about your taxes is great. but those Board of Finance meetings are also not attended, and these questions are not being done as these budgets are being developed. And so please know that we are all residents who sit on each of these boards, and we are all impacted by these taxes just as you are. So we wholeheartedly understand the impact that it's going to have on your pocket, because it's having the same impact on ours. And we still came to you in good faith, knowing that we put in hours upon hours of trying to get this as low as we possibly could. And there are just so many things that are out of our control when it comes to this budget. The transportation costs are through the roof, and that's not just for regular ed, they skyrocket for special education students as well. Our admin are not taking these ginormous raises. Our superintendent isn't even taking an increase in this budget. We have staff who are here because they care about the kids, and they are doing everything they can with what they've been given, but they are not given everything that they need. So we get that this is going to cost money, but we have to be able to fund our students and fund our school in order to be able to have a successful community in the years to come.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments, questions?
You gotta stop asking that way.
I want to make sure everybody has the opportunity to speak their mind. I'll stay here all night if we have to. But, yes.
Mayor, I just want to echo and just say thank you. Here are these people who donate their time. They are not getting paid. Nobody who sits on any of these boards are paid. And I just know that the Board of Ed has worked tirelessly since January, trying to find every penny that they could cut. So thank you for everything that you have done.
One last time. Yeah, go ahead.
We had just mentioned that, like the more urban areas get more funding from the state, and the same is true for the schools. And, I work in this building because my kids go here, because I care about the community, but I could literally just go 1 mile away in Norwich and get paid double what I get paid here. So I just want to throw that out there, like we live in a small town, and we don't get the funding, and that includes, our schools. The state pays Norwich more than they pay us, and part of the perk of living in a small town that is in a city is that we decide where our money goes, and it really should go to the school. It's just an extra cost of living somewhere where there's an extra funding from the state.
Thank you. You're asking it? All right, thank you very much.
I just have one more comment. So I will say this, there's only 17 out of 169 school districts that actually don't host a high school, and Lisbon is one of them. So that dynamic plays into the budget because we're at the mercy of the districts that we send our kids to, right? And there's no carve-out in the state for districts that don't have a high school, right? So they have lots of carve-outs, concentrated poverty, high poverty, multilingual. There's lots of carve-outs where they give them extra money in the ECS grant, but they don't give the 17 sending districts any additional money, even though we have no control over the high school costs. So yeah, it's working against us.
And I will tell you, you don't want to even think about having your own high school with the cost of building it and operating it.
We had one.
All right, we don't want to know that. All right, anything else? Any other comments? All right, having none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming out. We appreciate your input.